Our interview this morning is with Franklin Delano Roosevelt Andrews. Andy was born in Amite County, Mississippi in October of 1937. He served in the United States Navy from May of 1951 until March of 1963.
57. May of 57.
57. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
I'll correct that. Okay, so he served May of 57
Right.
until March of 63. His
Right.
highest rank attained was E5, Radioman second class. This interview is conducted at Burleson, Texas on Friday, March the 4th, 2011. My name is Dale Dexheimer. I'm not related to Andy in any way. Also in the room is Milton Gibson, who is our videographer. This interview is conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress and for Operation Remember for the city of Burleson, Texas. And with that introduction, Andy, we'll let you tell us your story, sir, of when you were in a white hat Navy.
Okay. Well, I was in college at the Southwest Mississippi Junior College and had been there 2 years. And up on completion there, I didn't have the funds or the desire to go on to college. I wanted to see some of the world because I'd never been in a place but Amite County, Mississippi. And so in fellowshipping and fraternizing with a Navy recruiter in Macomb, Mississippi, I let him talk me into joining the Navy, which I had never considered before because of my, didn't think I could swim very far. But even though I was a good swimmer, so I let him talk me going in the Navy, and he talked me into going into communications because it was wide open at the time. Wide open to me and easy to make rank, and had good schools. So I was signed up and enlisted down in New Orleans, Louisiana, and passed a physical and put on a plane, which it was my first adventure to ever be on an airplane. And they asked me where I wanted to take my boot training at that time, and I had a choice of Great Lakes, Illinois, or San Diego, California. I said, which one of them is the furthest? And he said, San Diego. I said, that's where I want to go. So they put me on a plane, and I had to go all by myself, all alone, because I don't know, for some reason, I think it was about 15 fellows there were from Alabama and Louisiana and Mississippi at the same time, for reasons that I don't know, didn't make the grade as far as physical or whatever. Anyway, so I had to go by myself, and it was before the jet plane was used commercially, so it was a prop job that we rode all the way to San Diego, and it was not pressurized. I remember my ears being very painful, and the stewardess spilled coffee all over my new white slacks that I had on in my pink shirt because Elvis was very popular then, and I had my belt around to the side, of course, and I had ducktails then. Anyway, got to San Diego about 2 o'clock in the morning, and this rude dude, which I found out later was a chief, was yelling and screaming and calling me bad names. And I said, well, I believe I done got myself out of one mess into another one. But anyway, boot camp went well. I had a very nice instructor. I remember he was a chief radarman, and his name was Clay, a very kind and compassionate fellow, which was not something that you've seen too often with other boot companies. And but anyway, boot camp went well. I did contact an Asian flu while I was in there, and spent 2 or 3 weeks in sick bay with a real high fever, and I didn't remember a whole lot. I was not conscious a lot of the time, because the fever was so high. But the first time I'd ever had an alcohol bath, but they give me those every day to try to keep the fever down. But anyway, I recovered, obviously, and got out of boot camp, went on a 15-day leave back to Mississippi, and was accepted into RMA school there on San Diego on the base, and returned and did my school training there, and graduated in March of '58, and had orders to the USS Thomaston, LSD number 28, was a relatively new ship, home ported San Diego. And I spent the remainder of my active duty aboard the USS Thomaston, making Westpac cruises, and served as a radioman under I think 3 captains. Captain Callahan was a skipper when I went aboard. He soon was relieved, and Captain Jarvis, which recently he just passed away a year before last, was captain, a large statue of a man from Arkansas. And then after his tour on the Thomaston, I served under Captain Nichols, and I think he was the skipper when I was separated from active duty in San Francisco in 1961, in March of '61, where I was discharged, and had met my future wife in the meantime, and she lived in Santa Ana, California, and I made my home in Santa Ana because we got married about a month after I was separated from the Navy, and after I could find a job. Anyway, we just fixed to celebrate 50 years of marriage here in about 30 days. We've got 4 kids, and they're all grown. I got 7 grandkids, and I got a great grandkid on the way, going to be born just about my 50th wedding anniversary. Another boy. Anyway, that pretty well sums up my life's history.
Well, let's see if we can maybe come up with a little more here.
Oh, okay.
After you got out, you spent almost 4 years active.
Mm-hmm.
You ever use any of those those radioman skills when you got out?
Never did. It was not.
You never worked in anything that.
No. I tried in a couple of places. Made the application with cities as far as communications department, and the city of Santa Ana, California, one of them. But it was pretty much dominated by the female. Anyway, for whatever reason, it's all right. I enjoyed what I wound up getting into, which was construction and building. I like it. I did like it.
Like being outside, like being your own boss.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Before I go back any further, you mentioned the 3 captains you had.
Mm-hmm.
Your captains, were they captains or commanders?
No, they were captains.
They were full?
They were full captains, yes, sir.
Okay. And evidently you had some contact with those folks because you remembered all 3 of them.
Oh, yeah. Well, as a radioman, you are in close contact with the skipper and the XO and of course, the communications people, the radarman. Operations division is where radiomen are put.
You did more as an RM striker and an RM3 when you went around with a message board, I guess, as a second class.
That was over supervisor.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, right.
But for anybody who maybe doesn't know, you work down in a comm shack.
Mm-hmm.
Message comes in, somebody sits there and type. I guess you type it then.
Yeah, right. It was typed. Yeah, one of the communications typewriter, which is all capitals, and pretty much similar to a regular civilian typewriter in that day, but it did have some differences in the locations of the keys. But yeah, we had used close contact with all the officers, really.
You typed this message up.
Hmm.
How many parts on the message? You had carbon paper yet, didn't you?
Yes, you did. Yeah. You know, I don't remember how many parts of that message. I still see the message blanks that we used, but it seemed like it was 3 parts. I'm not sure. I don't forgot.
So one goes in a file
Mm-hmm.
in a Radio Shack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. On
And then you had a message board. You had a clipboard.
It had a clipboard to route.
Okay.
And you
So
had,
where'd you go with this clipboard then?
well, you did the officers' quarters and the people that the message was associated with that message, what it pertained to. If it's supply officer, if it's for supplies, it went to the supply people. Of course, the skippers or the XOs seen them all, you know.
Yeah. So you got to see how often you go around.
You know, I don't know. I didn't actually route the board that much. I was always in charge of the watch. Seems like, even as when I first went aboard, you know.
And you mentioned the watch.
Yeah.
Again, for folks who haven't been there, and particularly in your time,
Yeah.
what kind of watches did you stand, time-wise, Andy?
Oh, 4 hours. 4 hours. It's C, 4 on and 8 off, I believe. In port, I think you stood at 8 hours.
Just like civilians.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But when you were at sea, you would be on duty
Mm-hmm.
in the Radio Shack,
Yeah.
say from 8 in the morning
To 12.
until 12.
Right.
Then you were off until 4, until 8. You went back on at 8 in the evening,
Right.
2000,
Right.
and went until midnight.
Right.
So until somebody shifted things, you pretty much had a good routine there.
Yeah, you had a good
You
routine.
worked 8 until 12 in the morning, and then 8 until 12 at night.
Yeah, that was the procedure unless you were at sea and on operations. You know, you had duties all the time. You had encrypted messages. You know, even while you was off watch, you would still had duties. And seeing after the equipment, we had to see after a lot of our own equipment. The old SRT-14 transmitters, I remember, were not too reliable. And the old receivers that we had required a lot of maintenance. They were bad, especially with the when we were firing, when they were shooting big guns on the ship. It was hard to keep those receivers on frequency. So you had other duties other than a watch when you're at sea, you know.
You mentioned encrypted messages, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
You had a crypto officer.
Mm-hmm.
You get a message. What's it look like if it's encrypted?
Let's see, I believe it's in letters, groups of 5. Yeah, been a long time, but I still see it. Letters and groups of 5 that didn't make any sense and didn't spell anything. But they had a system worked out to decode it.
When you get this encrypted message,
Mm-hmm.
you got to go find somebody on duty that's
Mm-hmm.
going to go in that.
Right. Yeah.
What the crypto shed?
Yeah. Crypto room. Yeah.
Yeah.
And break it. Yeah.
What did it look like? The crypto room.
It was a small little office. On aboard the Thomaston, it probably wasn't more than 5 or 6 foot square. It was small and enclosed. I recall one time being on watch in Olongapo. It's in the Philippines, and I was on watch, and it was like 8 or 9 o'clock at night. It was not late, but it was not during the day. daylight hours. And the teletype, radio teletype run all the time with all the messages to address all the ships in the Pacific, and you scan that, keep watch on that teletype, and to get the message that involved your ship. And this one started out top secret, top secret, top secret, and it rolled on up, and it started printing plain language. It was not encrypted. Of course, they used a lot of tape back then to transport messages through radio. Anyway, I couldn't believe what I was seeing, so I immediately notified the comm officer, which he got a hold of the base there in the Philippines at Subic, and some young man in communications had fed the wrong tape over the air, and it went out all over it. So I don't know what repercussions arrived from that, but that stands out in my mind as a time that was uh-oh. I'd hate to been in his shoes.
What kind of clearance did you have, Andy?
Oh, just confidential.
Confidential?
Yeah.
Do you know what you went through to get that clearance, that security clearance?
No, I don't. I don't remember.
They just said, you got a confidential and therefore you can look at certain...
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't remember if there was any, what procedures took place.
Let me back up to boot camp. You go to boot camp, and this is a new experience. You've already been on that airplane where they hurt your ears and spilled coffee on your white slacks and your pink shirt.
Yeah.
You had your ducktails and all that.
Right.
What happened to them ducktails?
They immediately relieved me of those ducktails, I believe about the first day I was in there, and handed me some clothes that was way too big. I was a small fellow. I think I weighed 132 pounds when I joined the Navy. And they gave me some clothes that I thought was somebody else. But by the time boot camp was over, they fit pretty good. Because all that
was pretty good?
The chow must have been really good, and was eating regular too, and all that good exercise and rest. I was used to not getting a whole lot of sleep at night. Being 19 years old, I was very active.
Boot camp. What time did they get you up in the morning?
Around 5, I believe, 5 o'clock.
5?
I believe that's right.
And then at what time did they tell you to go to bed?
Oh, 10 o'clock, lights out.
Lights out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No radio.
You march a little bit during the day?
Oh, yeah. Lots of marching and in class. Marching in class. And physical exercise, drill. And,
do you remember what the classes were offhand in boot camp, Andy?
Oh, it had to do with the Navy history and seamanship and then what do you call it?
Etiquette, maybe?
Yeah, etiquette.
Who to salute and who not to salute.
Yeah, right. When and where to where
Of course, you were a seaman deuce, so you saluted everybody.
That's right. Everything. Yeah. Yeah.
You go to boot camp and you go to A school, RMA school. How long were you in RMA school?
I don't forgot. It was about 8 months, I think, 8 or 9.
Was it really that long?
Yeah. Yes, it was. Well, let's see. I went in May of '57. How long is boot camp?
8 weeks, I guess.
I think it was 8 weeks. Okay, from 8 weeks, so that'd be May, June, July. I started A school in August and got out in March. August. That's 7 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in A school, you learned how to be a radioman.
Yeah.
So they taught you the equipment?
Equipment, electricity, theory, and then of course every day was involved with hours of copying CW, carrier wave code, practicing sending and receiving, and I believe, if I recall, you had to be able to send. I don't forget how many words a minute. I believe 22 words a minute, and be able to copy 30 or something like that. That was with just a regular hand key.
You ever use a speed key?
Yes, I did. Yeah, qualified for the speed key.
Was it legal?
I don't. Yeah, they used it a lot.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that we was allowed to use it. Not in school, but it was not. That was something that you picked up and practiced at sea.
What's the difference in the regular key and the speed key?
Well, the regular key is just a push down motion with a key. The speed key is it's got a spring loaded where you can when you hold it, you just hold it and it'll do the dits and da, dit, da, you know. Which really speeds it up, and that's why I call it a speed key, I guess. You know. But it's tough to copy them, and some of them fellows. It's hard to copy because they. See, how do I say this? You know, people talk different. I talk like a fellow from Mississippi, but you talk to a fellow from New York, he's hard to understand. So, same way that with keys that send in that code, they slang it out and they get different pitches to it. So you have to learn how to listen and copy what that fellow's trying to say. You know. Well, it was interesting. It was I enjoyed it. Communications was, and it's come so far nowadays. It's unreal. When the ship went in dry dock, when we got back the last cruise overseas, was to change all the communications gear from the old SRT-14 to single sideband. Which started, I guess, a kind of a revolution in the communications, stepping it up in the technology of, we didn't have satellites, and ship-to-shore phone was minimum. But changed world.
Some of those things old RMs never forget when you were there, your da-da-da stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never forget some of those things. Do you?
You know, I still could copy it up to a point. You never forget it. You know, it's there.
Well, for 3 or 4 years, that's what you did every day, day in,
Every day
out.
out, 9 days a week. Yeah.
9 days a week, okay. You went on board Thomaston, and you were home ported at San Diego.
Right.
You went on Westpac cruises.
Mm-hmm.
So, tell us about a Westpac cruise. Today is March the 4th. If you were going to go on a Westpac cruise today,
Mm-hmm.
so you're going to leave San Diego today,
Mm-hmm.
where are you going to go?
Well, you usually stopped in Hawaii, Pearl Harbor.
How long did it take you to get there?
It seemed like it'd take about 13 days.
You go by yourself, or were there other ships with you?
Well, we did both. Most of the time, we went by ourselves. There was a few times that we went in convoy. Most of the time, went by ourselves, and we joined up with the fleet over there. We spent a lot of time in Okinawa, a lot of time in the Philippines, and a lot of time in Yokosuka, Japan. We made a lot of the ports in Japan. Iwakuni, Sasebo, I forgot all the names, but and we spent a lot of time down in Taiwan, Vietnam, Korea.
Vietnam was just starting to heat up when you got out.
Yes, we was there. We took Marines and Army personnel in there in '60 in a police action that was taking place.
Did you pull up to the pier somewhere and let them off, or did you send them out in a
no, we anchored out and sent them in the amphibious
Yeah,
craft.
okay.
But never, no, the action, the war hadn't really started. It was, like I said, police action, uprisings or whatever. In Korea, we spent a good bit of time there, taking people and picking up people, take them to troops from Korea to Okinawa, not Naha, but White Beach, and the CB battalion. I remember we transported them in back and forth from White Beach, Okinawa to Vietnam. And of course, we always got R&R in Hong Kong. Just every cruise, we would wind up spending some time in Hong Kong.
You get some uniforms made in Hong Kong?
Yes, I did. Yeah, some shark skin whites. Just got to Okinawa and run into a Marine, and he messed them brand new whites up. Yeah.
Okay, we won't go there. Okay, it takes you 2 weeks to get to Hawaii.
Yeah.
You stay in Hawaii how long?
Oh, just a few days, pick up a day or two, pick up supplies, and then.
You wouldn't go on the beach?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we went over there. Yeah, we know where Hotel Street is, yeah.
Okay.
But was not one of my favorite places, Pearl Harbor. Yeah, of course, a lot of servicemen there. But I remember seeing the Arizona there, because it hadn't been too long. WW2 hadn't been over too long when I was there.
Yeah.
They were still pretty fresh on everybody's mind. And then we go on, usually from there to Yokosuka.
How long would that take you from Hawaii up to?
You know, I can't recall. I don't remember.
3-4 weeks?
Yeah, a couple of weeks.
Pretty for a piece of
Yeah,
it.
yeah, it is. Yeah. Anyway, I think top speed of the Thomaston, if I recall, was like about 18 knots. It could do maybe 22 knots, but it's kept it around 18 knots. And we did experience a lot of typhoons, one right after the other some years. Of course, I never did understand back then why we would leave that nice, peaceful shore and they want to run you out in the middle of that ocean so you can ride that thing out.
How was that ride?
Oh, that's rough, I'll tell you. I seen them old boys that had been in the Navy 12, 15 years, awfully sick, you know, trying to hang on to that tray while you eat, and it's slinging going everywhere. It was not a good picture, but I was fortunate. It didn't bother me, the sea and being seasick. I got a little sick the first time I went out. We went from San Diego up to Seattle, and we got up to about the Golden Gate Bridge, and I did get a little woozy. But that was the only time that I ever experienced being seasick. But I used to feel sorry for some of those fellows. They was crawling, pushing that fire bucket on the deck, you know, and wouldn't eat for several days. Just couldn't eat.
You ever use bunk straps?
No, I don't think we ever did. No, we took some rolls. We did lose power. We was in convoy in a typhoon. It was rough, and I think this was in 1960. We lost power underway, and I never did know because that was not my department. But anyway, and the ship behind us was bearing down on us, and we didn't have lights or nothing. I mean, we lost everything. And anyway, they happened to see us in time, and he turned. But that old Thomaston was going around and around, and I guess the only time I was really ever frightened.
How many men in the crew on Thomaston?
I think we had like 400 and something, close to 500. Yeah.
A lot of folks on board.
Yeah. And then we always carried a group of UDT which is, I think they call them something else now, SEALs or whatever, but it was underwater demolition team back then. And we always had a group of Marines. I don't know whether it was a battalion or squadron or what, but we always had those aboard overseas, and usually left them somewhere and come back with some more, you know.
How many RMs radiomen you have on board?
There was about let's see, it seemed like about 8 or 9, and
One chief, two chiefs?
well, had a first class one went aboard, then we got a chief Hayden. Matter of fact, Hayden made chief after he come aboard. Then after him was a first class Hancock, was his name. And I believe that's the only one I can.
You ever go to any reunions or anything along those lines?
But been going to the reunions every year just about for about the last 12, 15 years. When I became aware of it, that's how I met my friend Whit. Yeah.
Okay.
He went to one that I didn't go to, and when some of the fellows there, some of the radiomen mentioned that he was from Burleson, Texas, that he said, well, there's another fellow from that Thomaston that lives in your area, so he called and we got together.
The reason I ask you, you remember some of the names so well, and we're talking 50 plus years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you retain a lot of the names. You just remember a lot of guys compared to some other folks that we've talked to.
Yeah, I'd tell you the truth. You know, the Navy is a close group. The ship was a close group. Just about all of those fellows, you're in contact with them, you know, on the beach and on the ship every day. And a lot of those fellows, some of them I hadn't been able to find, but yeah, they all still remember one another, and some of them I've stayed in contact with from that day I got out. Most of them stayed in and retired.
When you were underway, what was the uniform of the day?
Dungarees.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Dungaree shirt, dungarees,
Mm-hmm.
black shoes.
Right, black shoes, white hat. Yeah.
Okay.
Dixie cup. Yeah.
Yeah. When you were in port,
Mm-hmm.
what'd you wear?
To go ashore, you had to wear your Class A. You know, it was summertime,
whites,
wear
dress
whites
blues.
and when blues in the winter.
Okay.
Yeah. And the undressed blues. At one time, our uniform of the day for the radioman in operations was undressed blues. That depended on who was communications officer.
You ever think about making a career of it? You ever think about doing your 20?
Yes, I did. When I went in, I really had the intentions of doing 20. I like the Navy. I guess if I hadn't have met the lady that I married 50 years ago, I would have probably made a career out of it. I love the Navy, and the Navy was good to me. I don't regret, and I cherish every day that I served in it. Met some nice people, made some good friends, and
You wanted to see the world, I guess they showed you.
yeah,
Part of
well, I seen a good part of it. Got me out of Amite County.
You ever spend enough time on the beach anywhere to get to know some native people, Filipinos or people up in Japan or
No,
Taiwan, wherever?
no, not really. No, we wouldn't. We didn't spend a lot of time in port. They kept you going, you know, usually in and out. And then another thing was we probably had time scheduled, but those typhoons had me back out there. I recall being in Okinawa and ride the typhoon out for like 2 weeks, come in and never get off. Had to turn around and go right back. Oh, here comes another one. So, you know, it lasted, seemed like forever.
Andy, thank you for taking the time to come see us today.
Yes, sir. Well, I've enjoyed it.
Appreciate your time in
yes,
the military, sir.
was, so thank you, sir. Enjoyed it myself. And I'd do it all again,
Good.
okay?
You bet. That's a good ending.